Network Entertainment.
Hey, Stan here. Before we get to the season finale of Now Steaming later this month, it is no season finale na. We're actually going to be sharing something from the archives, from the older feed of the show in case, you didn't get to follow it, you don't know where to find the older episodes. We actually pulled out this episode from 2021 during the show's original run, where we talked to our friends Mikey and Charisse Llorin about the dreaded Great Wall of Tsinoy relationships. So we hope you get to enjoy this one. A lot of people do still ask us about it. Every time you meet a Chinoy, I'm sure napapag-usapan siya at some point, especially if you're not Chinoy or nagbabala ka to climb the Great Wall. So Mikey and Charisse share insights and stories that I'd like to think still ring true and hit hard 4 years later. So here's our original interview from the podcast's first run and first season with Mikey and Charisse Llorin about the Great Wall of Chinoy relationships. Let's throw it back to 2021. Here we go. Before we get to this week's episode of Now Steaming, we just want to take a moment to invite you to watch the upcoming Chinoy TV documentary series, Chinese by Blood, Filipino by Heart on CNN Philippines. All three of us will be part of this documentary. It's a 10-part series that will be airing on CNN. That's going to start on 8/8 at 8 p.m. So, auspicious talaga.
Date is
Oh,
shaking.
yeah.
Date is shaking.
So Sunday, August 8th at 8 p.m. and it'll continue for 10 weeks after that. And then if you don't have CNN Philippines at home, it will be available on the Chinoy TV YouTube channel every Monday. So go watch out for that. All three of us from the Now Steaming podcast are there. Syempre, yung title, Kim and Said came up with that, Chinese by Blood, Filipino by Heart, right? I think we can tell the world that you guys came up with that tagline.
And watch, and that's why it'll be explained in the series on how we came up with that title. So do watch.
Right. So go watch it. It's Chinoy TV's upcoming season. We're really excited, honored, and proud to be a part of it. 8/8 at 8 p.m. Chinese by Blood, Filipino by Heart. #One Chinoy. Enjoy this week's episode. You are watching or listening to Now Steaming. This is the podcast where we serve fresh hot takes straight from the millennial Chinoy perspective. My name is Stan C, and my co-hosts, as always, my collaborators, are the co-creators of So Asian Comics, Kimberly Mas and Cedric Cheng. And, oh boy, this episode, we've been looking forward to this basically since Now Steaming was in the planning stages, diba?
This is a big one.
Yeah, it's not the first or the last time na pag-uusapan, or it is the first time we're going to talk about it on the podcast, but definitely not the last time that we'll talk about the Great Wall. And when you say those words in our community, you get a reaction. Said, why did you go, ooh?
Well, first of all, every time, like when I was in college or when I was in work, like whenever people would like just get to know me, start to converse with me, one of the earliest questions that they would ask me is, do you have the Great Wall? Like, can you date someone who's not Chinese? So do you guys get those kinds of questions as well in your workplace?
Yeah, definitely. Ako all the time, especially since I'm a girl and it feels I'm in the arts industry, so there's not a lot of females in the art industry not Chinese. So I get that question often as well. So
If you're new to the concept of the Great Wall, let's break it down for you really quickly. The Great Wall is the idea na if you are from a Chinese family, you can only date or marry other people from the Chinese community. So it's become such a topic among people for generations, basically, since we're framing it in yung context natin, di ba, dito sa Philippines. And we know now we're not going to be doing this for only one episode. So we're going to encourage our listeners and our viewers to send us your stories about the Great Wall. Kung meron kayong mga gustong ilabas, if it's going to be therapeutic or cathartic for you to share these stories with us and treat us as if we're Ate Charo, go ahead. Our email address is nowsteamingpodcast@gmail.com. And we promise we're actually going to read through these emails. If you want to remain anonymous, we'll keep you anonymous. Again, it is nowsteamingpodcast@gmail.com. You want to go all MMK on our asses, that is the way to do that. But let's get to our conversation for this episode. We've actually got a couple of guests. They are a married couple who I've been friends with for quite some time. The male part of the couple, Mikey Llorin, is a longtime friend of mine from the wrestling community. He's also a writer and an educator, and his wife, Charisse Llorin, is a researcher over at De La Salle University. Mikey, Char, thank you so much for joining us here on Now Steaming.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Hi, thank you.
So, I just gotta say, before we start talking to Mikey and Char about them being a Great Wall success story, now, the reason why Now Steaming all even began is because I was a guest on Mikey and Char's podcast, Hurry Up the Cakes. This was sometime last year, and I want to let Mikey and Char talk about it. Let's talk about the podcast and that specific episode that you guys invited me for.
Well, what we want when we were planning the podcast, right? We had a short list of what we wanted to accomplish with the show, and I guess ultimately what it was for us was it was like a time capsule. It was like, this is something we want to record about what we believe in, what we like, what we care about, and what we want to share to Max. Like, if Max decides that he wants to find out what his parents were like when he was Max is our son. He's 4 years old now. He's our only son, and we wanted to record something that if he were interested in his parents when he was a child, he'd have something to listen to. And among those issues were that of I get what the Filipino Chinese the Tsinoy community, and how we are a part of it. We're a part of it. Char is 100% Chinese, and I am not. and Max is half that. So it's an important part of Max's heritage that we wanted to talk about freely, without not disparagingly, in a way that honors who he is, but also like makes a point about what we stand for in those matters. So that's why we invited you, Stan. That's why we thought you're the perfect person to invite.
But I remember that it wasn't even a part of the short list at first. Like, we didn't even know that we could talk about it. We didn't know that there were people we could openly talk about it with. And then Stan had that post on Facebook.
That's right.
Yeah, and then
That's right.
you said,
What's good,
"Oh,
Ichi
oh my
group?"
gosh, yeah."
Oh, oh, that group.
Right. And so that's when Mikey said we should totally talk to Stan about this. And I was kind of shocked that there was someone who was willing to openly talk about this, because this was my life for so long. And it was like a thing that we weren't allowed to question or talk about. So yeah. So thank you, Stan.
So it worked out. I think it worked out.
I mean, you have Max, 4 years old, so.
Yeah, quick fun fact about Max. So like the last few days before Max was born, Mikey and I were watching WWE live at the MOA Arena. And we were having a conversation at the concourse right outside yung arena. We were like, dude, you're gonna be a dad in like a day or two. Like, cherish this moment, bro. Like, cherish this moment that you can watch wrestling without any repercussions and whatever. And, you know, fast forward to 2021, global pandemic and whatever. You have a kid now. And yeah, it's so beautiful to be a part of. Hopefully being able to help Max be more aware about yung identity niya, about where he comes from, and hopefully, yun nga, as you guys mentioned, to really respect both sides of his identity. So I want to start by asking you, Char, about your background, because I recognize na even kami sa podcast na to, we risk saying na all Chinoys are ganito, na we are a homogeneous blob, which we are not. Like, I think na yung voices namin ni Kim and Sed are only a small subsection of our larger community. So, Char, can you please describe what type of household you were raised in, where you went to school, all that stuff, just so we can get to know you a bit better.
So what type of household I was raised in? Well, my parents own a construction business. So, like, in terms of our household, in tipong, the store was downstairs and our house was upstairs type of setup.
Yep.
But when I was little, I went to Chinese school first here. In preschool, I think I went to St. Peter and then Makati Hope. Yeah.
Oh.
Pero nag-migrate kasi kami for a while. And then when we came back, I was, I think, in grade 3 at that time. My mom tried putting me back into the Chinese school system. Pero hindi na pwede kasi my English subjects were at a grade 3 level. but my Chinese subjects were at a preschool level.
Oof.
So there was a disconnect. And yeah, and they were like, parang weird naman if she goes to school with preschoolers half the day and with her peers the other half of the day. So I actually went to an international school instead. I went to Southville International School. Yeah.
So what was that like, going to an international school and then coming home to a traditional Chinese-Filipino family setup? Because you painted the perfect picture, di ba, na very tauke na household, na your house is upstairs and then the business is downstairs.
It felt normal naman growing up. Pero I was very aware that my mom was extra happy if I met Chinese friends in school. Like she would always ask about them. She would always get weirdly kilig about it because she used to say that her biggest regret for me and my ahia was that we didn't go to Chinese school, and therefore we turned out to be weirdos like we are now. But yeah, so that's it. It felt normal. It was okay naman. I mean, yeah.
Marami bang Lanang or Chinese Filipinos at a place like Southville?
Marami ba? Not so many. In my barkada, there was only one, and my mom was in love with her. She kept asking her to come sleep over, and then she would talk to her in Chinese, and it was just she would like, and especially when I went to college, when I went to La Salle na, that's when she was very, very like, oh yeah, you hang out with the other Chinese kids so that you can learn, you can learn about our culture and stuff like that. So she really encouraged those friendships. And I had a couple of Chinese Filipino friends in La Salle. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Actually, I'm also curious because we have the same setup. My mom would also put my friend who's a Chinese like in a pedestal back in college. So she's like, yeah, because I went to an art school, right? So there was absolutely no one Chinese in my block. So every time she sees someone who looks slightly Chinese or like has chinky eyes or like Chinese features, she's gonna be like, is that person Chinese? Like, okay, you should totally bring him or her home. Like, we should get to know her a little bit more.
Right.
But yeah,
And super interested. Yeah.
yeah. And I'm just also curious, like, was your mom really strict about the friends you picked? Like, does it really have to be Chinese, or like since you went to an international school, like it's totally fine if you have a diverse set of friends?
It was okay that I had a diverse set of friends, but I could tell na sobrang kilig siya whenever I would say that I had a friend with a certain last name that sounded very lanang. I remember that she would gladly drive me to their homes so that I could sleep over and things like that. And she was very interested in what their parents did. And yeah, but I mean, with my other friends, she was like, "Oh yeah, that's fine." Like, I mean, it was not as excited as she would be with my Chinese friends.
Do you speak Hokkien a lot? Like, did you grow up really conversing with your parents in Hokkien? Kasi diba stereotypically, that's also an expectation from the previous generation.
Yeah, I got a lot of flack for that. No, I spoke in English mostly to my parents, but they would speak to me in Chinese. So I can actually understand it really well, but I'm not as fluent if you make me.
We're the same.
Oh, pare-pareho tayo.
Yeah. Yes,
I'm
exactly.
the odd one out here. Odd one out. Yeah, but wow. Okay.
Oh, si
But
Kim
oh
yung
my gosh,
ideal housewife daw, diba?
Yeah, ideal housewife. Fix my head.
Congratulations.
And we're both
I
from
don't know if
Makati
that's
Hope as
supposed to
well.
be a compliment or what, pero
Did, did you ever get that, Char? Yung, oh, we have to really make you the perfect Chinese wife. Kasi Kim mentioned that in a previous episode na that was something that she felt she had to really fit into. Did you ever have that?
Oh, yeah, totally. Whenever we would have hapopi,
Yeah.
like, or any of those traditional ceremonial things, they would always say, you have to pay attention and you have to learn because your mother-in-law is going to want you to know this.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry,
right.
Stan Kim, what's hapopi?
No, let's let Char explain it.
Oh no.
It's like when there's someone who's passed away in your family, and it's a ceremony where you have the incense and you have to put out food on special days.
Okay, okay.
Tiam hiu ka.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yung incense
Sorry,
sticks
that's
na
what we called
sinusunog.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, hapopi, tiam hiu. To me, they're interchangeable. I'm sure my dad will throw a fit and say, no, they got it wrong.
I'm so sorry.
Dislike this episode.
Sorry, Tito.
No, my dad has actually been listening to the podcasts, and like he he's incredibly supportive of everything I do, so he always listens
Nice.
to everything. So lalo na when this podcast came out, I think one of the first things he said was, "Oh, you guys should be speaking in Hokkien," which is why I asked you, Char, about the whole Hokkien thing, diba? Because I think all of us can relate to the whole, "Oh, you gotta learn how to speak in Hokkien."
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And family friends who I barely knew, like titas, aunties, would call me out on it. Like, I don't think that's right that you don't speak in Fukien. Like, I don't think like they would be like that's such a disadvantage to you.
I feel
And I
you.
just like kind of yeah.
How did that make you feel?
Yeah. I thought it was a little funny. I tried not to be overly upset about it. But I mean, I understood where they were coming from. Like they just wanted me to be more immersed in the culture, I suppose. But you know, these ladies are often more funny than they are offensive.
Yeah. Was it only to you, or did your brother also get the same, I guess,
It
expectations?
was just to me.
Just to you,
That's
right?
right. Yeah.
Right?
It was just to me because my aya spoke. He's worse than me because he can't even speak Filipino well. He was because he came here later when from Canada. So it was just really just to me. They never pressured him to learn Chinese or to. He can't even understand it. Like I can naman. So I don't. Yeah.
Grabe, double standard stand. Yeah, this is just connecting to our previous episode. Okay,
On
we were
ingrained
talking about
misogyny, yeah.
talking about this.
Yeah, so go check this out if you're hearing Now Steaming for the first time, episode 4 on ingrained misogyny. I want to ask you, Char, about Lasal, your time there. Kasi when I think of Lasal, hindi ako taga Lasal kasi, so I think of it as the ultimate Chinoy school. Kasi
Oh my
it's in
God, yes.
Manila, tapos everywhere you look left, may Chinoy. You look right, may Chinoy. You look in front of you, may Chinoy. The person listening to your conversations also probably Chinoy.
And he's
So-
probably an engineering or marketing course.
Yeah,
Oh,
baka Liacom
yeah.
yun, di ba? And then part pa ng Englicom.
Yung
So,
Anglicom. I was gonna say Anglicom.
so what was your
My mom
experience
wanted me
like?
to try that. I just remember ever since college started becoming like it was coming closer and closer. My parents really, really wanted me to go to LaSalle. Like it was like they kept saying it's such a good school, you have to go there. So I was so pressured to get in because my ahia didn't get in. So they were like, you have to go to LaSalle. It's such a good school. It's the top school in the Philippines or something like that. Like they didn't even want me to take the test in UP. They said, okay, if you really want to take it, just take it as a practice, but we don't want you to go to UP. And even Ateneo, I don't think they had very strong feelings about Ateneo, but they really, really wanted me to go to LaSalle. And I remember when I got in, like I feel like my mom wanted to make a party because I got in, but it was a big deal. Like and I felt it. Like I felt how proud they were that I got in, and it meant something to them. But it was only when I got in that I realized that it was because of that. Because I just thought that it was a top school in the Philippines, and that's why they wanted me to go there. But when I got there and I saw,
Surprise.
everyone here looks like me. Finally,
I see why. I see why.
yeah, I see why. I see why they wanted me to come here. So yeah, I mean, but that's when my mom really was like, I like you should go and meet other Chinese friends. This is your time. So yeah.
It's a very interesting observation, no? Especially coming from an international school perspective. Now you're not as aware of the LaSalle stereotype as kunwari if you went to
no,
a
not at all. Yeah.
to a Filipino school or even a Chinese school. Kasi like kami sa Xavier, I had an idea that LaSalle was where all the Chinoys really went. So it's interesting yung perspective mo. Now, when it comes to the college life, that's where a lot of us really come out of our shells and start dating. So did you start dating in college, and were your initial relationships with Chinoys, or did you just not go down that route agad?
My college life was boring because I was I went through a very Christian phase where I wanted to focus on Jesus. So I didn't date a lot in college, but I did have a lot of crushes, and not many of them were Chinese. But when I got out of college, that's when dating became more of a thing for me. And that's I remember that I had to make a deal with my mom that she could kaishao me until I was 25. But by the time I was 25, if none of the kaishaos stuck, then I could date whoever I wanted to date. So that was our agreement.
Bakit may ganung agreement? And why were you okay with the whole Kai Shao thing? Because when you mentioned it, parang there was a tinge of, yeah, this is a very weird thing, but I'm gonna say it anyway. That's what I'm getting.
Yeah, no, totally. Because I knew that ever since I don't know, ever since I hit puberty, that messaging of you must only have a boyfriend that's Chinese, you must only marry Chinese was always ingrained in us. In fact, I felt like it was a tagline. Like whenever I would come to a big party and make beso beso my aunties, that's the first thing they would say to me. Oh, kan lang nang. That's what they would say. Like always get and I knew that it was super important to them. Like I every time I would see them, that's what they would talk to me about. They wouldn't talk to me about anything else. It would always be you have to find a boyfriend who's Chinese, you have to marry a Chinese man. So I knew that it was something that was important to my mom, especially. I mean, not so much my extended family, but I knew that it mattered to her. But at the same time, I wanted to give it a chance. Like I wanted to see that, they love me. They're my family. They want what's best for me. So I never doubted that for a second. So I said, okay, you know what? I want to let's do it your way. Like I was in a no rush naman to get into a relationship. So I was like, let's do it your way. And if anything sticks, then great. But if not, then you have to let me do it my way na. So it was my way of compromising with them.
You mentioned na yung mga earliest crushes mo, a lot of them were not Chinese. Did you have to do yung mental gymnastics? Na parang, maybe they're like some percent Chinese, or did you try to do some sort of cognitive dissonance to be like, oh no, I have a crush on them, but like I don't want to marry them, like just to justify and reconcile the idea na kanlan nang.
No, because I knew where I stood. I knew that it didn't matter to me.
Okay.
Parang the internal part was quite clear to me. I never internalized. Like I grew up on TV. I grew up watching all of these things, reading all of these things, knowing that racism was wrong. So I knew that it was off now from the beginning. So from internally, I had no struggles with it. There was nothing that I had to break mentally about it. I just knew that it was something that was important to them.
When was the first time na you got into a serious relationship and it was with someone who was not Chinese? Was it with Mikey? And if it wasn't, okay, it was with Mikey.
Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about how this guy comes in. So, how did your parents react when you and Mikey got together, became boyfriend girlfriend, and how did you introduce him to your parents?
Oh,
You should tell them about the Crazy Rich Asians scene.
Wow.
So
but that's
there's
later, pa. That's not how I told them about it.
Oh, but then this is how
Okay,
the
there's like
family
two
found out.
versions.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Because
Okay.
there's I was already past. We had already done that kai showing for 5 years or so, and I think maybe I was 26 or 27 when we met, something like that. And when we first hung out, I didn't know that it was going to be romantic, so I didn't say anything. But after that first night that we hung out, it became clear that it was gonna be romantic. So the next day I was at home and he wanted to hang out again. So since I was living in my mom's house, I would still tell her where I would go. So I told her about it and I was just honest about it. I said, Mom, I'm going on a date with someone, is what I said. And then I said that it was Mikey. And then, of course, she asked if he was Chinese. And I said no. And it was not good.
Oh.
Yeah, it wasn't good. She's very upset, like the bog levels upset.
Shit.
Yeah. It wasn't fun. But I was I felt there was a part of me thought maybe I should just lie about it. Hindi ko naman alam where this is going, right? I don't know if this is parang why risk rocking the boat if I'm not sure of where we're gonna end up. But there was a voice inside my head that said, if you lie about it, then you buy into the belief that it's wrong. Because, like if I'm not doing anything wrong, then why should I lie about it? So I told the truth, and it was not friendly for a while. Yeah.
Like how long is a while?
Well, I mean, she never stopped talking to me, but she was unhappy with me for years.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, until we got engaged,
Until we got engaged.
basically. Yeah. I mean, she's still my mom. Like, she would still do everything that she would do for me before. But I could tell that there was always there was always a haze, a tinge of disappointment and unhappiness, and just like aggression, kind of like I
Passive
could feel that.
aggressiveness.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Was it just your mom,
Yeah.
or like did anyone else in your family react that way?
Oh, well, okay, that was my mom. I told my mom, and then therefore my mom told my dad because that's how
Mhm.
it is in our family. We
Buy
don't
one
really
take
tell our
one.
dad, yeah, right? Everything goes through my mom. Um, and then one day we were hanging. This is months later, and then one day we were hanging out in a mall, and I didn't know that a group of titas saw us. The next morning I wake up and my phone is flooded with messages
Oh, the Crazy
from my
Rich Asian
cousins.
scene.
Yeah, from all
Yeah.
over the world saying, "Oh my gosh, you have a boyfriend na pala." Because I think, yeah, because I think we were being sweet, and it was obvious that we were romantic. So yeah, so that's what happened, and my parents had to field all of that. It was people calling them and telling them that, do you know that she's with someone who's not Chinese?
Oh my
So
god.
yeah,
Oh my god.
yeah.
So it
You were
happens.
saying
Yeah, it really
that was
happened.
the payoff of having
Oh,
told them
right.
early.
Yeah, because my the some extended relatives embellished a little and said that your daughter has been lying to you all these years. Like, look at, like, she's been with a Filipino for so long. You're being fooled. Diagong, they said to my
Uh-huh.
mom. Yeah, and I was just so offended. And buti na lang I didn't lie about it. Buti na lang this wasn't how they found out, right? Buti na lang they found out from me, because I can just imagine the shitstorm that would have occurred if they had found out from someone else and not me. And parang I would imagine na mas nakakahiya yun for them, right? Versus already knowing. So,
I can
yeah.
imagine din the Viber group chats, the mga Viber titas talaga.
Oh man.
Paparazzi
Yeah.
photos here and there.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
going back to your nuclear family, was there anybody who was being supportive naman towards your relationship with Mikey? Because you mentioned the apprehension coming from your mom, and then how your dad reacted then, diba? But like, how did your brother react, or any cousins, or whatever?
My brothers are great. They love Mikey. Well, I mean, they weren't close from the get-go, but then my brothers are like me. They don't think that there's anything wrong with it. My cousins, I know that some of them are still a little bit more traditional, but they've never outwardly said anything to me. Many of them, like, I have a couple who are super duper close to us as a couple. So yeah, I mean, everyone in our generation is pretty much okay naman. Yeah.
So how did you introduce Mikey to your parents? How did that happen? Kasi if there's already that tension, that apprehension, and then si Mikey, feels like an outsider, can you paint a picture of how it went down?
I only introduced them like officially and formally when he proposed na to me.
No fucking way.
Yeah.
Oh.
Holy shit.
Yeah, because I knew that if I had introduced him in any other context where there was no commitment and we were just boyfriend and girlfriend, the goal would still be to try to break us up, and the goal would still be to try to disparage the relationship. So I felt like the only time that should really bring him home is when we're sure now this is it. But they, like, I mean, they would see him from time to time. He would kind of like say hi from afar. Like when he would drop me home, he'd say good evening and things like that, but not officially like sit down like this is my mom and my
Yeah.
dad. So yeah.
Yeah, wow. It's just a lot to take in, no? Like everything that you went through. It's like a plot line for a movie. But yeah, just a follow-up question for me. Was there a time that you guys, I mean, just this is just digging a little bit deep into your relationship. If you want to answer the question, like, was there a time that you didn't want to pursue the relationship anymore because there was a lot of barriers, like let's say Char for you it's your parents, and then
Mhm.
Mikey naman for you parang from the get-go na parang it's gonna be hard, so parang what made you say it's worth pursuing?
Um, well, I don't know, maybe you can validate this, but I never made it his problem because
Mm,
anong gagawin niya sa race niya? Parang it's not something that he can change,
yeah.
right? So it's not like their real only problem with him is that he isn't Chinese, and that's not his fault. So I never made it his problem, and I never let it affect our relationship. So for me, that was their issue. That was their issue. I can't change their minds, but if I let it affect me, then it's my issue, and it's not. So do you?
I can confirm all of this. Like she never. I knew what was happening and what she was going through, but she never made it like it's a thing we have to deal with. It
Mm,
was never like a warning or like, oh, one day. It was just like, yeah, no, they said this about this. They said they saw us, but yeah, don't worry about it. Anyways, what are you gonna do today? Ganon. Parang it was really like insulated.
Yeah.
And I guess that's also how we, families are. It's not just Chinese families. Parang all families have their own thing.
Right.
And but parang I guess it's also how individualistic Char sees herself and saw her life. That it's a reflection of that. That it never really was an issue at all. Like even after we get married, there are a lot of times that I'm getting ahead of myself, but there were instances that could have been an issue had Char decided that it would be an issue, but it wasn't. Just because like she has her family, I have my family, and we're the ones who are married.
Right.
So anyway, to answer that, no, there was no point where race was ever an issue or hindered us from pursuing what we wanted to pursue.
But Mikey, knowing that, or having said that, I'm sure you had an idea of what you were getting yourself into, diba? Kasi yun nga, the Great Wall is not a new topic. And I'm sure even our parents were already talking about it, or yung mga ka-generation nila na hindi Chinese. So, did you know exactly what you were getting yourself into, and how did you feel knowing na, okay, totoo nga pala yung Great Wall, and I'm kind of affected because they see me a certain way?
Right. My dad, before he passed away, when I was telling him about Char, was like, "Oh, but she's Chinese." Like, yeah, 100%. Really? Like, yes. You have to be careful, he says to me. And I was like, why? Because I know about the issues, but I'm surprised that he had any input on it. And because he's a lawyer, he had experienced, or he had heard of stories where, like, one day the Chinese part of the couple, the Chinese member of couple, would just disappear from the person's life with no explanation. Like everything's going great, and then one day, poof, gone.
Oh,
Like
man.
and I guess he was expressing the extent to which some families would go to preserve the Great Wall. Like I guess because I thought, Romeo and Juliet love story, nothing you can't overcome. But my dad's like no. It can go as far as one day they'll be gone. Ganon. So, but that it never made me, in terms of our relationship, Char never gave me any reason to doubt that it was ever a thing that I had to worry about. Like we have to worry about how family made us feel, but never about the dynamic of our relationship. If it was about what we had to address, and I guess what we continue to have to address as with any family, is how we feel about certain people saying certain things, but it never cast doubt on our relationship at all.
Very fascinating yung sinabi mo na your dad had something to say about, like 100% Chinese, because that echoes this scene in the original Mano Po between Richard Gomez and Tony Mabesa, who plays his father. And he was telling his father na, meron akong jowa, yan, character ni Aramina. And then the father said pretty much the same thing that your dad said. So it's very fascinating na shit, real life nga pala to. At least that part wasn't like overly blown up. So yun, I just had to get that out there. Kim, you had a follow-up to something Mikey was saying kanina?
Yeah, actually, good thing Mikey brought up the topic about his dad, because I was about to ask like how his family naman reacted, because like most of the time, diba, we heard like how Char's family reacted. But Mikey, I mean, aside from your dad, how about your mom or siblings or maybe cousins? How did they react to this, like to you and Char's relationship?
This is a thing I had to figure out after getting married, that how oblivious so many Filipinos are about how the Tsinoy life is. Because my mom was like, "Oh, that's great." Period. Like, no one said anything. No, except my dad, who heard of stories, who had to deal with clients one of whom disappeared.
Yung abogado siya.
Yeah, Pero we never. I had no idea the Great Wall is like a vague idea in my head. Alam ko lang in my head I thought it was a preference, like they would prefer that I was Chinese. I did not realize that the Great Wall was a thing. Like I had to learn this, thankfully not the hard way, but I had to learn that it's so the extent to which it's ingrained. So my family never really said anything about Char being Chinese. They said what they would usually say about me dating someone, but never having anything to do with a Char being from a Chinese family.
Char, did you
Oh,
ever have to
yeah.
to train Mikey for lack of a better term? Kasi 'di ba like when you get into a relationship with someone and you have to have them be familiar with certain things,
Yeah.
like birthday party to, bawal mag-black, stuff like that. Like did you have to put Mikey through the ringer, so to speak?
Yeah, a little. Just things like that. Like we can't wear black ever around them. Whenever it's a birthday party, you wear red. And like the one thing that I told him was just let's not be overly ourselves when we're around them
What does that mean?
because they like well because he's Mikey. He's very like jokey and
Mm.
warm and he likes talking to people and he's the center of attention everywhere else. And I just thought I just don't want to be talked about by these people. And you know that they're going to talk. You know that they're going to talk, especially about us, especially about, I just don't want to give them any ammo. So I was just like, let's just lay low whenever we're around them, like talk to my cousins, just be very like polite and not super conversational with the older folk.
Uh-huh.
But
I
yeah,
get
so
that.
that's what I because he was being very himself. I think the first few times we were out with them. So I was like, so after that I was like, we just need to like not give them any ammo because you know that they're gonna take whatever they want to take.
Right. Can I say it's so surprising to me how all of you understand that, because to me that's still so foreign. I'm looking at your heads and you're all nodding, right? But in my head, to this day it's still so
Uh-huh.
strange to me how I'm not naman restrained, no, pero parang I have to present a version of myself that isn't fully myself, because in my head,
Uh-huh.
and I suppose you guys are podcast hosts. You know what it's like. You just have to enter a room and you just have to win them over. That's just what you do. And what she warned me about is that
Don't even try.
don't even try.
Yeah.
It may appear as if I'm winning, and there were several times that I'm thinking, "Wow, these guys really like me," right? I'm like,
Yeah.
they're laughing at everyone's laughing at my jokes, but Char kind of taught me to not believe any of it. So that's still hard for me to grasp, and it's so hilarious to me that all of you understand that.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yep.
because it's
Yep.
real, bro.
Yep.
It's real. Especially with the
real.
older folks.
Now you
yeah.
know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So, okay, let's get to the proposal. Kasi sabi mo, Char, na you only really formally introduced Mikey to your parents when he proposed. How long were you in a relationship na by that point? Because I can imagine it's super awkward na, we've been together X years and this is
Yeah.
the first time you're meeting this man.
I'm so bad with numbers. How long were we together?
years.
We were together for 3 years.
That's a long time.
That's a long time, yeah. Yeah, and we even like traveled together. So we would go to other countries together and things like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, I would just tell them like I would not lie to them about it. It was the important thing. I would tell them and they would be upset with me. They would not be happy. And it was just 3 years of basically my mom being low-key angry with me every day. Yeah.
So, ano yun, like when you guys got engaged, nawala na yung anger magically? Like because it was gonna be institutionalized under God and under the law and all that?
I don't think nawala siya magically, but it came to a point where they had to stop fighting it because it was gonna happen. I mean, I don't think that they would try to break up a marriage, you know. But I guess they saw that I was serious about this person and that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him. So I think at that point they would stop fighting it. I mean, they're never gonna. I think that that's something that you have to accept. That they're probably never gonna stop being disappointed in your choices, and you have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with it because otherwise it's just gonna eat you up
Yeah.
alive if you care. You
Right.
know.
Yeah,
So,
true.
When the night I proposed, I called my mom, and then you called your mom. And do you remember what your mom said?
She said, "Call your dad. Tell him." In that
Wow.
voice. Yeah.
Straight to
Tell
the
him. You
point.
call him. You tell him. Yeah.
And
And
how
I-
did your
and I-
dad respond?
My dad didn't understand. I think I just called him and I'm like, "Dad, I'm engaged." He was like, "Okay, see you later." I don't really understand what I said.
Oh my.
So I got away with it because it was later. I think that my mom had to explain to him because I don't think he fully understood what the word engaged meant because I said it in English. So I was like, "Okay, bye." I think I even said "love you" for the first time ever. I said "love you," and then I put the phone down, and then we celebrated some more. But yeah, that's what happened.
Wow.
Uh,
Mikey, did you ever have a conversation with Char's parents after you proposed? Like, did they sit you down and have that honest to Jesus talk or some shit?
Yes, we did. That was when I met them. So I went to their house and then I sat down beside her on the couch, and then they were on the other couch, and the conversation. I remember nagka-faux pa pa ako that I'm kind of dying just thinking about it, but because I don't know. I had to learn that that behavior is of utmost importance.
So
Like
what was the faux pas?
the faux pas was I was sitting next to her and she was wearing shorts and I put my hand on her knee while we were talking.
Oh no. Oh
And
no.
I saw them both look at my hand and I slowly just inched away. And pretended no one called it out. We laughed. We in the car I had to like decompress and like, oh my god, I'm so sorry I did that. But when it was happening, I realized it and they just looked at my hands like, okay, I'm good. This is not a thing I should be doing. But the Come to Jesus meeting was not about any technical terms of what coming to Jesus was about. It was more of, I think it was more of an emotional assertion of, you better freaking take care of this woman. But there were also hints of, you better freaking take care of this woman because
This is a huge risk.
this is a huge risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
Wait,
a
huge
huge
risk
risk
on their part or on your part?
on my part. Well, no, I think there was elements of that because they also had the sense of, we have tried our best to take care of this fiercely independent, fiercely strong-willed woman. And we've done our best over the past 28 years at the time. And now you're gonna have to do that. So good luck. Parang may ganun.
They asked him a lot about what he did for work and
Yeah.
like what if he had businesses or anything like that. Basically, like to see if he could, I
Provide.
guess, yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
I was like, I'm a theater actor. I'm a teacher.
Yeah, how did they react to that? I
Yeah,
need to
yeah.
know. Kasi diba, again, like you don't have your own business, you're not in the corporate world, hindi
No.
ka abogado.
Oo. Buti na lang, I think a year before that, his mom put up a business na parang naging shareholder siya. So he was able to put that on the table. Like we own this thing. And then I think that's when my dad and my mom are like, okay, that's not bad. That has potential, you know? But like the teacher thing and the theater actor thing, they totally don't get it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a testament to how much they don't get it is that it's one of the things that everybody in the family knew about me. So I would we would show up in a reunion or party or something, and they'd be like, "Oh, how's theater going?" And I'm like, "I never talked to you about theater, but I guess, oh, okay, everybody knows that I am a theater actor, and that's what I do." So, it's because I don't introduce myself to people as a theater actor. It's just what I do.
Right,
But
right.
I guess that became who I was to some.
I think, Mikey, na double whammy ka eh. Kasi like ako, people just know me as the DJ. So like even ako, na Tsinoy na ako, I show up at these reunions and they're like, oh yeah, how's radio? Oh, how is,
Yeah.
how is what you do, diba? Or how's the wrestling, diba? It's like,
How's
people
the
just
wrestling?
focus on that one non-stereotypically Chinoy thing.
Yeah.
And I think, Mikey, you can relate, and Kim and said, as artists as well, diba? You can relate when I say it's frustrating na they just put
It's
you in
just
that little
one
box.
thing.
One thing, yeah.
So ikaw double whammy ka pa kasi hindi ka pa Chinese.
That's right. That's right. Tapos teacher pa, yung side gig ko teaching, so it was totally like, yeah, it was the business thing. I even forgot about that now that you mentioned it. But yeah, even the business is apparently what turned the tide over, that made it okay. But I was gonna say that they they you were very different kasi. Like you're so stubborn to them,
Yeah.
I mean, I think we should talk about also that before I proposed, Char moved out. Like 6 months before
Wow.
I proposed, she decided to move out on her own, which I think made such a difference also to our relationship. Like if I were proposing and I was the one to take her out of her home, it would have been much different. Like it would have been worse than, eyebrow raised. It would have been a little worse than that. But because she had moved out on her own, uh, it was not, the impact was not the same. That's why when I met them, I went to their house. It wasn't Char's house anymore. So it was a iba yung dynamic, and I'm sure you can understand
Wow.
what that was about. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's why it worked to my benefit that she's very stubborn.
Definitely a good call, no,
Yeah.
from Char na you actually did that. Sort of like preparation then. But
Because that's
yeah,
usually
I'm just
taboo.
yeah,
Yeah.
taboo or parang it's unheard of, especially if you're a woman, you're a girl, parang moving out of your parents' house before you get married.
Yeah.
That's a
Yep.
new idea. So, anyways, like I was wondering, Char, if there was ever a point that your parents tried to sit you down, like give you the
Oh,
talk, or parang, okay, yeah, okay, this guy you should stop seeing him. Like here, I have some other people to
oh,
kaisha to
multiple
you.
times. Multiple times. Yeah, I remember that before when my mom when they were still actively showing me.
Mhm.
Like it never really worked out because we were just always so different. Our values were different. And
Yeah.
nothing against these guys. They're great guys, but it was just we were just so different, you know. And I would come home and I would talk to my mom about it and we would laugh about it together. Like it would be like, ah, yeah nga, he's so weird, no? Sige, sige, next time na lang, next one na lang, or something like that. But I remember that when I started dating him, my mom took out her long list of the guys that I had dated. What was wrong with this one? You didn't give them a chance kasi. So binalikan niya, sabi ko, akala ko ba you agreed with me that it wasn't a good fit? Like, you know, so, and I just saw that she was parang a little bit more desperate to get me back on that
Oh
route.
yeah.
Yeah.
What's wrong
May
with
may
Justin
binder
Uy and
siya.
Kevin Tan?
Jesus Christ. So, after the engagement, so yun na, Mikey got to meet everybody. You had these conversations now with your parents. When the wedding actually happened, did you still feel that there were still bits and pieces of the Great Wall, or did you feel like you'd already broken through it?
After I never even knew that the wall was a real thing. So I had to construct the wall in my head to see how far I had gone past it. So I learned that I didn't really parang kasi what Char did for me, unbeknownst to me, was like create a framework for our relationship that where there was no great wall. You know, parang I didn't know there was a Great Wall. I thought it was, it was a Chinese family wishing I was Chinese. That's not the same as a Great Wall. Diba? Actually, a racial preference is not the same as, you know, potentially kidnapping Char and I'll never see her again. Yung ganon. And when my dad like I'm telling you my dad's story, I kind of laughed him off. I was like, yeah, that's silly. Right? I did not realize that that's a legitimate thing. And I did not realize it until after I got married. So when I got married, having found that we're married already, diba? So that means on paper, we're past the Great Wall. We've overcome the Great Wall. I now have to look back and see, oh, this is what I did pala. I see, this is what I have to deal with. So things like in all the reunions, they're all asking me how my theater is going. You know, things like, uh, well, no, everyone is always so nice to me. It's, in my mind, because everyone's so nice, they all like me. But Char had to convince me that, there was more to deal with. But in fairness to Char and to Char's family, there was never any sense of I'm not welcome here. There were only like faux pas, or there one or two faux pas that I can recall that made me like realize, oh, I'm out of my sorts here. I don't know what I'm doing pala, and that there's a way that I should be doing things that I cannot because I'm me. Ganon.
I think what I realized is that you can't break down the Great Wall for anyone else but yourself. Like, I can't ever expect my family to be completely happy with what I've chosen. I can't expect them to fully accept Mikey the way that I do, you know? And I have to be okay with that. And if I'm not okay with that, then I have no business being in a relationship with him because it's not his fault that he's Filipino. So,
Or you have to be okay with the Great Wall. I think that's the other
Yeah.
alternative. Or you just accept it wholesale.
yeah.
You know.
But have you ever been part of conversations with family members where, kunwari, they make a generalizing, sweeping statement na, kapag Juana kasi, di ba? Like, I hate using that term, but that comes up.
Yeah.
Kapag Juana kasi, chu. And then you're like, what about si Mikey? Like, has that ever happened?
Not while he was around. But
Obviously, yeah, I can
absolutely, those
tell.
conversations
Okay.
have happened. Yeah. And yeah, and like now my mom still wants my brothers to get together with a Chinese woman. Like it's still a thing that she prefers, and she will say it. And like my little brother has a girlfriend who's not Chinese,
Mm-hmm.
so you can tell that it's the same thing. He's going through the same thing that I went through. So
There,
yeah,
there
Oh.
was one
it
time.
hasn't changed.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't expect it to change. That's years of history that I'm just one person. So yeah.
There was one conversation that I was a part of that I felt it, but it wasn't direct. It was about parenting. We were talking to cousins, the cousins we love. Char's cousin that we loved, and her husband. And it was we were having dinner, and it was just how will you raise your kids? And that was a conversation. And then in essence, the idea was that, yeah, for our kids the Great Wall will exist. And I just remember feeling like, what do I say here? The living embodiment of the overcoming the Great Wall on this table. It made me feel, well, I respect it, but I have to respect it, because it's their choice to parent however they want, even if that
Yeah.
choice is fundamentally against would have been against my existence. Parang,
Because
Yeah.
it's
but
racist.
they're not naman saying that they reject me. Parang, in fact, they embraced me wholeheartedly. So they're talking about how they'll raise their kids. So that's okay with me. I don't know about the kids, but that's okay with me. That's their kids, family nila yan eh. But that was the only time I ever had any semblance of, this is how you're different, huh? Because everybody has been so welcoming. I have to say that everybody's been so welcoming, and I actually do think they like me more than Char thinks that they like me. So they're very, very kind.
Let's talk about Max. Since 2 years into your marriage, now you have Max, diba? And Max is turning 5 this September. So, how do you plan to raise Max, knowing na yun nga, you have this side that's very traditional and very Chinese, and you have this side that's also traditional but very Filipino?
Well, we're never gonna say one side is better than the other. We're gonna say that he comes from parang. I think the way that we want to frame it is that you're so lucky because you get to learn from these two rich cultures. You get to it'll make you a better person by by having this diverse background. So yeah.
Yeah, I think what matters the most is a lot of the dynamics kasi comes with, di ba, identity politics, right? So, and when you identify with something, the problems come when what you identify with is something you want to impose on others. And we never ever want to do that to Max, but we want to share with him the heritage that we identify with, that we think it's important, that this is where he comes from. But as he grows up, and as he becomes as a fully realized human being, 99% of those choices are going to be up to him. They are not they are not things that we'll impose. So if he chooses to identify with what he identifies with, I think ultimately what matters is that he's a good, kind person. I mean, there are people who live according to Great Wall rules that I never heard of. But I mean, I only found out about now who totally, absolutely subscribe to the Great Wall, who are wonderful people, who I would not want to change. So it's not we're not gonna tell him that either culture is like inherently worse or better than the other. Of course, there are pitfalls. Like there's racism, there's misogyny, there's things like that. But those are the bad things. Racism and misogyny are the bad things. We're not gonna say that what we what we identify as racist or misogynist are things that are because they're Chinese. Like that's not the case. It's racist because it's racist. So we want Max to choose what he identifies with, and we want to be there to help him figure out what's good or bad about it.
Right. I'm gonna ask that question na the stereotypically Chinese uncles and aunties will ask, which is like, in your home, how do you practice it then? Like in raising him, like do you expose him to both cultures, or are there parts of Chinese culture that you grew up with, Charna, you're not going to expose Max to?
We expose, like, I mean, whenever we're invited to my side of the family, he goes to all of those things. He knows that he has to wear red when it's Guama or Guakong's birthday. he gets ampao. He's we're not gonna. Is there anything that we're not gonna expose him to? I don't think so, and I don't think that we're. I think we're gonna be very forthcoming about our story. We're gonna be very honest about how this all came about and what we had to go through and what we had to decide and what we believe in. Yeah.
Yeah, eventually he's gonna ask us that if this is what they do, how come you guys don't do it? You know,
Yes.
he's gonna ask us that, but we're never gonna be like, oh, but we don't do that, huh? You know, we're not gonna warn him on the way to a party. You know, we're not, absolutely not. It's what the family does. But you know, he's gonna eventually ask, how come on our birthdays he doesn't have to wear it? Things like that.
Yeah.
And
He did ask that. He
Yeah,
did
he did.
ask that
Oh.
last time. Yeah.
How do you explain it?
Yeah. Well, I just say that, well, it's not something that's important to me and Papa, but it's important to Guama and Guakong, and we love them. So, I mean,
Mhm, yeah.
it doesn't cost us anything to do it. So let's just do it.
Right. So now that you guys have a fully formed family, do you still get comments from other people from within the Chinese community or the Chinese Filipino community about, oh, look at them, isang lanang, isang hindi, and all that shit?
I don't, not directly,
Yeah.
but I remember that when I was pregnant with Max and when I had him, there was a lot of comments about his skin tone.
Fuck.
Because when he came out, and on his first day, he looked very Chinese.
Mhm.
Like his eyes were like mine. He was super white. But then I think that we went overboard on the sunning. You know, like how you're supposed to bring out an infant and expose them to sunlight.
Okay.
It helps with it helps with their health at the beginning of their life. And he got really, really dark. Like, so for the first 3 months, he was super dark, and I could and there was always that, oh no, yeah, oh, parang Juanabin, like
What?
yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah.
What?
But I mean, eventually by his third month, he just like instantly became fair again. I don't know, baby skin is weird, but I mean, it was never an issue for us because we adored him, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But there was always that idea of like, does he look Filipino or does he look Chinese? And that's why I was so triggered when Meghan Markle went out in that
Yeah.
interview and right about Oprah was like, what did Oprah say? She was like,
no, that was not the silenced one. That was the what?
Oh, yeah, what? Yeah, I remember when they were like talking about how dark Meghan Markle's baby was. I was super triggered by that because I remember that there were conversations about it.
I never knew any of this, by the way.
Yeah. um, and I remember that one time we went to a party later on. Max was a little bit older, maybe he was 1 or 2, and I had a cousin who said, "Isn't it ironic how the halvesies look more Chinese than the pure Chinese?"
Yep.
Because
yep.
Max looks very Chinese.
Yeah.
And I just thought, what a funny thing to say. You know, it was just like, can you hear yourself is what I wanted to ask. But she was just very like openly like saying that. So yeah.
How does it feel
So
when
there's
you
that,
hear
I mean,
these comments?
It's really easy to brush it off if it's about you. But when it's about your kid, sometimes you get kind of animalistic
Oh,
and
yeah.
you kind of want to like, right?
Yeah.
But I also have to remember that that that's not how you're going to change minds, I think, by fighting them. I don't think that you're going to it's not if you fight them and you tell them they're wrong. I don't think that that's going to change anything. So,
They'll close their minds further.
yeah.
Is it
Okay.
up
They'll
to
say
this
you
day?
don't understand.
Up to this
No
day?
naman. I mean,
Okay.
it's not like an ongoing thing. But
Okay,
it's, you know,
okay.
it's like comments every now and then.
Like
where-
spotters.
Where it's just
Alright.
so revealing. Right.
Last week was we were at we visited. We were masked and socially distant, but we visited because it was a birthday, and Max and I had been swimming at like the worst hours at 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. because that's the time that there's nobody in the pool.
Yeah.
So because you know that's when you swim. So we had gotten darker, and you know I guess I just never think anyone would comment on my appearance in the past 2 years because of COVID. But then when we arrived, it's like, you and Max got dark, huh? And I'm like, oh right. That matters here. I forgot.
It's funny na
Yeah,
they
we
even
did
were
get
so
that.
concerned about Max's skin tone when Mikey,
Yeah.
you're a fair-skinned guy yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah,
It's so weird.
it is funny,
I
you know?
don't know if it was like concern, but it was a topic of conversation, you know. Like they would look at pictures and be like, "Oh, he doesn't look Chinese."
Right.
You know, like it would be a thing that they would
Yeah.
comment on. Yeah. So it
No,
was.
yeah.
I guess it's important to them. Yeah.
And I think they're not alone kasi like sa Xavier there was a teacher that I encountered na yung mga estudyante na hindi mukhang Chinese automatic iniisip niya hindi Chinese so may grade ceiling na sila.
Oh
So
my gosh.
so like that's a thing. Yeah, I can say na your family members probably aren't the only ones. As
Yeah.
we wind down here, I want to zoom out and get your thoughts on the idea of the Great Wall as a whole. Now that you're where you're at in your lives and in your relationship,
Thoughts on like the Great Wall as like conceptually, what you think
as
of
a
the Great
whole,
Wall?
yeah, like the fact na it exists, na it was a part of your life, na kunwari Mikey, for you, whether or not you knew it, you were breaking through it.
Right. Can I start this?
Yeah, go ahead.
And I think you should say something. I don't think but
Yeah.
I want to say that I think we touched on this also on our episode on Hurry Up the Cakes last year, Stan. Like, I think people can be free to have their preferences as to who to date. I
Yeah.
also think people are free to have their preferences for who their children date. Um, I mean, preferences. I like Japanese food more than everything. I mean, I can have preferences about what I prefer. That's fine. And especially when it comes to dating, which is absolutely like super intimate and super like like that's as close to your core as you can get. Well, one of the closest things to your core. Uh, so you can have preferences, and you can express your preferences. I think what's troublesome for me to grasp or to accept is when preferences are imposed. Or I mean, I feel like even the Great Wall agreement that Char had with her family is fair. I think it's fair to say that okay, I'll try to do it until I'm 25, but after 25, no more na. I think that's fair. I because which is why I don't feel like I overcame a Great Wall. So what basically happened was Char was saying, okay, we can maintain the Great Wall, but as soon as I turn 25, I'm tearing it down, ha, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. And I think I never felt that Char had any resentment. This might be why that she had no resentment for her family about this. I certainly never did. Like I knew of it also. Like I knew Char before she turned 25, and I knew that she wasn't allowed to date anyone who wasn't Chinese until she turned 25. Um, I think that's okay. I think what's not okay is I guess the extent to which you guys talk about the Great Wall. What's the extent that it exists in so many people's lives where people really feel debilitated by other people's preferences. I think that is dangerous and scary, and that's I guess it's not just a dating thing; it's an everything thing. But they feel debilitated and they're not able to have agency for their own dating life. I think is scary because it's not even like I mean because I'm familiar with my parents having that you want people want daughters to date someone who can afford to take care of them for the rest of their lives, who doesn't look ugly, who can is responsible with money. Of course there are preferences.
Yeah, look at Kevin
Pero
Tan.
yung-
He's a good old Chinese boy. Diba?
but I can't make any of these jokes, guys. I just have to go with it. But like my Filipino-ness wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
But I never,
Definitely.
so things that aren't people's fault, if it were up to me, would not be a filter of preferences. But I think Char's mom had the right to do that. She can, and people can have the right to do that. I just look at what you did in your family, Char, and it looks like okay, that looks like the most ideal way to go about it. If you really have that kind of strongly held preference, uh, but if it were up to me, there would be no ritual.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
flat
a
out. Period.
diplomatic way of
You know.
saying it, diba? Cue all the people googling debilitating and agency and what these words mean.
Yeah. What do you think?
It's hard for me to speak about it very generally because I feel like every story is unique. And what I had going for me was like I can't imagine how it would be to go through what I went through if you were super intertwined with your family in a way where, for instance, if you were working in the family business, if yung kabuhayan mo, 'di ba?
Yeah.
Parang if it was all tangled together, and I was lucky because I was working at a university. Parang I could afford to keep myself alive away from my family. But I know that for so many of us Chinoys, it's not like that. We go to college and then we come back and we work for the family. So it becomes so much more complicated when to untangle yourself from their beliefs and their norms when so much of your life is in it. So, but what I can say from my experience is that it was always communicated like it was always communicated to me in a loving way, where it was like this great wall exists because we love you so much and we believe that you're precious and we want you to be taken care of. And if you can kind of understand where they're coming from or see where they're coming from, even if it's not right, even if it's not right, then you can have more empathy for them. And and hopefully, I mean, like, conversations like this will slowly break it down, because I don't think that you can break it down by throwing bombs. I think that we just need to keep talking about it, and then hopefully for the next generation of Chinoys, it won't be as weird to talk about it, because I came from a generation where you couldn't even question it. It was just a rule that you had to stick to. So now that we're talking about it, I think is great. So yeah.
Siguro, just to close it out, this is a question that Sed wrote down in our little list. Do you want to ask this one, Sed?
All right. So, well, would you guys have any tips for those who do plan to climb the Great Wall?
Mikey's laughing. I feel like you want to answer this one.
First.
You first.
Yeah, okay, you go first.
Okay. If you are the female and you're Chinese, move out. No. But see, I didn't even realize how much that worked for me.
Yeah.
I had no idea how. Because if you didn't, well, it would be so different. It would just be up. So it saved me from a lot of stress. But so that's not advice. It's the detangling from the family dynamic. Kasi detangling from family expectation means you have to detangle from family. Sorry, detangling from family culture means you have to detangle from family dynamic, and that's what Char was able to do by moving out. By moving out, she could say that she depends on herself and only herself to survive. She can love freely, and she can be loved freely, but there was no complications in that love. It was just love. So then, therefore, she's free to do whatever she wanted. Uh, if though you find that you can't, it's hard then if the advice is for people who are already like dating, right? Like they're in love with each other and one of them's not Chinese. Then I guess we can talk at length and we can talk about how to detangle family expectation and family dynamic and all that. But I guess if we're giving advice also to people who just don't like the Great Wall conceptually, but aren't really dating anyone yet, I don't know, maybe give it a chance. Give it a chance for a few years, and then if it doesn't, try to have as civil a conversation as possible. But what it will take for you to overcome it, if you insist on it being a thing you have to overcome, is complicated and will depend on how your family operates. For how it operated for Char, she simply needed to not be dependent on anyone anymore, and then she could be free to choose. It might be different for different people, and we'd love to talk. What do you think?
Well, from the perspective, if you're the Chinese Filipino person in the relationship, for me, I would just say that you have to be comfortable with the idea of being a disappointment for the rest of your life. Parang you have to be okay with it. You
A
have
plus
to,
is overrated, you know?
right, yeah. And I know that that's hard. That is hard for us, right? Because in a lot of ways, we're raised to want to make our parents proud.
Yeah.
We want to be someone that they brag about to their amigas, and so you have to be okay with being a disappointment. And if it matters to you that you're not a disappointment, then it will be very, very challenging for you to make this relationship work. A relationship like this work.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah, I'm sure Kevin Tan is taking notes.
This is not for Kevin Tan. This is for the Filipino in the relationship. Like being in this conversation now is still revealing to me after all these years. My heart goes out to those in the Chinese Filipino community who are having a difficult time because of this. And I guess you guys freely talk about how difficult it's been for you guys. But I want to talk to, I guess, the Filipinos in who have to deal with the Great Wall. That please don't let the difficulties our Chinese friends are dealing with make you think that you're any better than them. Like the Filipino in the party, while in the case of the Great Wall, the Filipinos the victim, diba? But the Great Wall is not the biggest thing you have to deal with, and it's not the most important thing. Like there are absolutely infinite cases in which Filipinos are the worst. Filipino. I mean, you guys are Chinese Filipino. You're Filipino. You know what that means. You know what you know. You know the parts of you that aren't Chinese, that are Filipino, that are terrible. That please don't have any illusions that you are always going to be the victim because of this great wall. You have some responsibility to be a good, right, honest, kind, loving person, and those things have nothing to do with whether you're Filipino or Chinese. Like the Filipino in the party, you have to love and you have to accept, and you can't give in to the great. I mean, if you're lucky enough to have a partner like Shar, who understands that the Great Wall is not a thing that you should even stress over, then you shouldn't stress over it and make it. Because we have this tendency to like grabe yung Great Wall ng mga Chinese, no? The Filipinos would totally do something like that. And I speak to the Filipinos in a Great Wall relationship to not do that. The Chinese are the Chinese, and you're not, and that's okay. That shouldn't be a thing. And you making it a thing is just the same as them making it a thing. So don't make it a thing. Is what I want to say.
Well, since you guys mentioned that you wanna open a line of communication for any listener or a viewer, or like a Kevin Tan or a Christine Tan who might want to send you a message or like an
Yep.
email, where can people hit you up and go straight to your message requests, only to be seen zoned?
Oh, you should give yours. I'm not so big on social media.
She's Charisse Stan, by the way. She's Charisse Stan Llorin.
Yeah,
So,
I'm a tan too.
you can find us on Twitter. I guess Twitter would make the most sense, no? At Mikey Llorin. I'm gonna say yours. At Charisse Llorin. That's CHARISSELLORIN, and at Mikey Llorin, MIKEYLLORIN.
Yeah. Just to explain to Mikey and Char, the Kevin Tan joke is something we did in like episode 1 or 2. Like sobrang random. We took the most random names.
Most
you could
generic
remember
Chinoy names.
Yes.
from yung
like-
mga class lists.
Yeah. Kevin Tan, Justin
I
Uy,
think I know 5.
John
yeah.
Kevin Tans,
Anything with a tan, but yeah.
Yeah, so like, yeah, it's just so funny. It just stuck. So, if there's a Kevin Tan who's actually listening,
an
and someone
We
actually
love you. We love
commented.
you.
There's
It's
a
an
Kevin
ongoing
Tan who
joke.
actually commented. Sobrang natawa kami. So we just had to share it
Yeah.
for context. But yeah, if you want to hit Mikey and Char up with your questions or whatever, you can do that. Or if you want to share a story with us, you can hit us up at nowsteamingpodcast@gmail.com. We
Yep.
can be a very, very poor person's version of Ate Charo for you, as best as
Budget
we can.
version.
Budget version. But Mikey, Char, thank you so much. Mikey, you know that I always treasure our conversations. These are always very meaningful for me. And I'm glad that we can have another one that we can put out there. Hopefully, Max can also learn something from this down the road. And Char, this is only like the second or third conversation we've had, but it's so nice to get to have this avenue to just spitball with you and shoot the breeze. So thank you both so much for spending time with us here on Now Steaming.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for having us, guys.
man.
Really appreciate it.
So remember, dear listeners, independence is key.
On that note, we have to let you know how you can hit us up individually as well. Kim, I know that people are just sliding into your DMs with their questions and comments about the podcast. Where can people find you?
Yeah, if you guys wanna catch me or like you wanna, send me a PM. A lot of people do that actually. It goes to my others inbox, so I'll sift through them as soon as I can. But thank you so much for all your messages. We really appreciate the warm response we're getting from the podcast. So thank you so much. You can hit me up at Kimberly Mass on Facebook, on Instagram. I also have my personal website. That's www.kimberlymass.com. Everything that I'm doing, it's all there, my bio. I also have like this little contact me section there. So if you want to have like a personal email conversation, I also have that. So there, that's how you can find me.
And said, where can people send you messages to just rant about all the Kevin Tan mentions?
Well, you can reach me personally on my Instagram account. It's Cedric C. Cheng. Or you can just message the inbox of Now Steaming Podcast on Facebook because
Yeah.
I'm the one who's handling it.
Yes, it's facebook.com/NowSteamingPodcast. Instagram, same handle. And then on Twitter, it is at NowSteamingPod. As for me, you can check out all the non-stereotypically Chinoy shit I do over at _Stancy on Twitter and on Instagram. Yeah, I don't have a hardware business, but that is none of your business. On that note, Now Steaming episode number 10 is in the books. We'll catch you on the next one. Thanks again to Mikey and Charisse Llorin for joining us here on this week's episode. Please stay safe, mask up, register to vote, and get your vaccines. We're out of here. Thank you for listening to Now Steaming. Now Steaming is hosted by Stan C, Kimberly Mas, and Cedric Cheng. Ronel Cheng is our writer and researcher. Our show is produced, mixed, edited, and mastered by the Pod Network.
The opinions of podcast creators, hosts, and guests are not necessarily reflective of the official stance of the Pod Network Entertainment, its hosts, or other network programs. The content created by the people behind the podcast is personal and not meant to harm any religion, ethnicity, group, organization, company, or individual.